The Versailles Wedding Hall disaster. The Versailles Wedding Hall was a structure located in southeast Jerusalem. On the night of May the 24th of 2001, Karen and Asaf Durar were celebrating their wedding reception at the location. Hundreds of friends and relatives were in attendance, and the party was in full swing when a large portion of the third floor collapsed. As a result of the failure, 23 people fell to their death and 380 were injured. The event is the worst civil disaster in the history of Israel. It shocked the public not only because of the number of fatalities, but because the collapse was documented on a camcorder. The video was broadcast on local and international television. It is an absolutely shocking piece of tape that clearly shows the collapse. It is amazing how only one portion of the floor gives way, creating a large hole. During the rescue effort, 3 people were recovered alive in the rubble. An investigation into the disaster concluded that it was not caused by a terrorist attack. This was further corroborated by witnesses who reported seeing a dangerous sag in the wedding floor a short time before the failure. The sag is clearly visible in the video. An initial inquiry blamed the collapse on the Palcal method of constructing lightweight coffee concrete floor systems. The side of the building that failed was designed to be a 2-story structure. Late in the construction process, it was decided that both sides of the building should be of equal heights, and a 3rd story was added to the shorter end. Following the disaster, the Versailles Law was passed by the Parliament of Israel. It established a special committee responsible for treating the people injured in the event. In October of 2004, the 3 owners of the Versailles Wedding Hall were convicted of causing human death and damage by negligence. Ramstein Air Show disaster. On August 28 of 1988, over 300,000 people attended the annual Ramstein Air Show in West Germany. The event was held at the US Ramstein Air Base. During the show, a mid-air collision occurred involving numerous Armaki MB339 panjets. In the chaos, 67 Spectres and 3 pilots died. In all, 346 people sustained serious injuries in the resulting explosion and fire. The event is the 2nd deadliest airshow disaster in history. The mid-air collision took place as 10 Armaki MB339 panjets from the Italian Air Force display team, Fres Tricolori, were performing their pierced heart formation. In the display, 2 groups of aircraft create a heart shape in front of the audience along the runway. In the completion of the lower tip of the heart, the 2 groups of planes pass each other parallel to the runway. The heart is then pierced in the direction of the audience by a lone aircraft. During the accident, the heart-piercing aircraft collided with 2 other jets. After the impact, the plane immediately crashed into the runway, breaking apart. The fuselage and resulting fireball of aviation fuel tumbled into the Spectre area, hitting the crowd and coming to rest against a refrigerated trailer. The crash site was considered to be the best seats in the house, centered on the show. One of the 3 pilots was able to eject from his seat, but unfortunately he was killed as he hit the runway before his parachute opened. A large amount of video was taken of the accident. Upon completing the heart figure, the piercing aircraft came in too low and fast at the crossing point. The entire incident took less than 7 seconds, leaving no time for people in the crowd to run away from the flying jet parts. Like all tragic events, this Ramstein disaster has inspired a conspiracy theory. 2 months before the airshow disaster, Airlines Ethiopian Flight 870 crashed into the Tyrrhenian Sea, killing all 81 people on board. No official explanation on why Flight 870 experienced complete failure has ever been produced by the Italian government. The event is known in the Italian media as the Ustica massacre. The role of Italian Air Force personnel in the tragedy is unclear. However, several members of the group have been investigated and brought to court for a number of offenses relating to the incident, including falsification of documents, perjury, abuse of office and aiding and abetting. 4 generals were charged with high treason on the allegations that they obstructed the government investigation of the accident by withholding information about air traffic at the time of the Ustica disaster. Skylive Air Show disaster. On July the 27th of 2002, over 10,000 Spectres gathered to watch an air show at the Skylive airfield near Lviv, Ukraine. The event was staged to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the Ukrainian Air Force's 14th Air Corps. At the height of the performance, the Ukrainian Air Force Sukhoi Su-27 jet fighter that was being flown by two experienced pilots lost control while entering a rolling maneuver and crashed into a crowd of people. The aircraft flattened out upon impact, skidding across the ground. It then began to break apart and made a cartwheel into the crowd of specters. Both pilots were able to eject from the aircraft and survived the accident with minor injuries. The airshow specters were not as lucky. 77 people were killed in the disaster, including 19 children. In all, 543 citizens were injured, and 100 of the people required medical attention for serious head injuries, burns, and bone fractures. The event is the worst airshow accident in history. Following the disaster, the pilots proclaimed that the flight map they had received differed from the actual layout. On the flight data recorder, one pilot asked, "And where are our specters?" An airshow pilot should always know where the crowd is located. Professionals close to the case have suggested that the pilots were slow to react to an automated warning issued by the flight computer. Ukrainian President Leonid Kuchma publicly blamed the military for the disaster and dismissed the head of the Air Force. The pilots involved in the accident were assigned the majority of blame. They were each given lengthy prison sentences and forced to pay the families of victims a large sum of money. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961. On November the 23rd of 1996, Ethiopian Airlines Flight 961 was hijacked en route from Addis Ababa to Nairobi. The plane was taken hostage by 3 Ethiopians who were seeking political asylum in Australia. The 3 inexperienced terrorists used a covered bottle of liquor as a fake bomb and were armed with an axe. The hijackers demanded the plane be flown to Australia. However, the captain informed the group that the aircraft did not have enough fuel to make it all the way to Australia. Instead of flying towards Australia, the captain followed the African coastline. The hijackers noticed that land was still visible and forced the pilot to steer east. The captain then secretly headed to the Comoro Islands, which are midway between Madagascar and the African mainland. The plane was nearly out of fuel as it approached the island group, but the hijackers continued to ignore the captain's warnings. Out of options, the captain began to circle the area. When the aircraft ran out of fuel, the crew used a ram air turbine to preserve the most essential functions, but this cut off the hydraulic systems, making the flaps inoperable. This forced the captain to land the plane at more than 175 knots, about 320 km per hour. While still fighting with the hijackers, he tried to ditch the aircraft in shallow waters 500 yards off Legalava Beach Hotel near Mistamoli at the northern end of Grand Comoro Island. The captain attempted to land parallel with the waves in an effort to smooth the landing. The left engine and wingtip struck the water first. The engine acted as a scoop and struck a coral reef, slowing the left side of the aircraft quickly, causing the Boeing 767 to violently spin left and break apart. Island residents and tourists, including a group of scuba divers and some French doctors on vacation, quickly came to the aid of the crash survivors. Sadly, 122 of the 172 passengers and crew died in the crash. Many people perished because they inflated their life jackets in the cabin too early, causing them to be trapped inside by the rising water. This fact has directly led to further notices about not inflating the vests before exiting the plane. A tourist on the beach recorded a video of the Ethiopian Airlines crashing into the water. The clip has served as an important tool in studies of aviation crashes and procedures. The event was one of very few examples of a large airliner landing in water, and the first hijacked water landing. Both the captain and co-pilot of the flight survived the crash and received aviation awards. They continue to fly for Ethiopian Airlines today. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Until tomorrow, goodbye.